Ontario was once Canada's premier tourist destination, drawing millions of visitors each year to experience everything from Niagara Falls to vibrant cities. But something has changed, and the numbers tell a troubling story. Number 10. Skyrocketing accommodation costs. Ontario has become one of the most expensive places to stay overnight in North America, and it's pricing out the average tourist completely. Here's a shocking reality that most people don't realize until they try to book a trip. A basic hotel room in Toronto now costs more than luxury accommodations in many European capitals. We're talking about $300 to $400 per night for what used to be considered mid-range lodging, and that's before taxes and fees that can add another $100 to your bill. The ripple effects extend far beyond Toronto. Even small towns that used to offer affordable getaway options have seen hotel prices double or triple in recent years. A weekend at a cottage rental that cost families $200 a night 5 years ago now demands $500 or more for the same experience. Airbnb, which was supposed to provide affordable alternatives, has become just as expensive as traditional hotels in most Ontario destinations. This pricing crisis isn't just about supply and demand, it's fundamentally changing who can afford to visit Ontario. Middle-class families who used to plan annual trips to Ontario attractions are now looking at other provinces or staying home entirely. International tourists, especially those from countries with weaker currencies, are bypassing Ontario altogether for more affordable Canadian destinations. The psychological impact is devastating for tourism planning. When potential visitors see accommodation costs that exceed their entire vacation budget, they don't just book somewhere cheaper. They often cancel their trip plans entirely. The stress of trying to find affordable lodging has turned vacation planning from an exciting experience into a frustrating ordeal that many people simply avoid. Tourism operators are starting to notice the change. Restaurants, attractions, and local businesses that depend on visitor spending are reporting fewer customers, especially families and budget-conscious travelers who historically made up the majority of Ontario's tourism market. But expensive hotels are just the beginning of Ontario's tourism troubles. Number 9. Deteriorating infrastructure and construction. Chaos. Ontario's infrastructure has become a tourist's nightmare, turning simple trips into exhausting ordeals that leave visitors swearing they'll never return. Here's something that will shock anyone who hasn't driven in Ontario recently. It can take longer to travel 50 kilometers within the Greater Toronto Area during peak times than it takes to fly from Toronto to Montreal. The combination of endless construction projects, crumbling roads, and inadequate public transit has created a transportation system that actively repels visitors. Highway 401, often called the busiest highway in North America, has become a parking lot that stretches for hundreds of kilometers. Tourists planning day trips between cities find themselves spending more time sitting in traffic than actually enjoying their destinations. What should be a 2-hour drive from Toronto to Ottawa regularly takes 4 or 5 hours, turning a manageable day trip into an exhausting marathon. The construction situation borders on the absurd. Major tourist routes have been under construction for years with no clear completion dates. The Gardiner Expressway in Toronto, a crucial route for visitors trying to reach downtown attractions, has been in various stages of repair and reconstruction for over a decade. Tourists arriving at Pearson Airport face construction delays before they even reach their hotels. Public transit, which should provide an alternative, is equally problematic. The TTC regularly experiences delays and service disruptions that strand tourists unfamiliar with the system. GO Transit, which connects regional destinations, operates on schedules that seem designed to discourage leisure travel rather than encourage it. The psychological impact on visitors is profound. Instead of focusing on enjoying their vacation, tourists spend their time stressed about transportation logistics. They return home with stories about traffic jams and construction delays rather than positive memories of Ontario's attractions. Even worse, the infrastructure problems create a cascade of other issues. When tourists can't reliably get from place to place, they spend less money at local businesses, visit fewer attractions, and are less likely to extend their stays or return in the future. And speaking of getting around, Ontario's parking situation has become another major deterrent. Number 8. Predatory parking and transportation costs. Ontario has turned the simple act of parking into a profit-generating nightmare that can cost tourists more than their actual vacation activities. Consider this outrageous example. Parking at Toronto's CN Tower for a few hours can cost more than admission to the tower itself. We're talking about $40 to $50 for basic parking, with premium spots reaching $60 or more. A family visiting multiple attractions in downtown Toronto can easily spend $200 just on parking before they've enjoyed a single tourist experience. The parking situation extends far beyond Toronto. Niagara Falls, Ontario's most famous tourist destination, has created a maze of private parking lots that charge premium prices for proximity to the falls. Tourists who don't research in advance find themselves paying $30 to $40 to park within walking distance of attractions they assumed would have reasonable public parking. Street parking in tourist areas has become equally problematic. The combination of confusing signage, aggressive enforcement, and expensive fines creates a hostile environment for visitors. Tourists unfamiliar with local parking regulations regularly receive tickets that can cost $100 or more, turning a pleasant day of sightseeing into an expensive lesson in municipal revenue generation. The ride-sharing alternatives aren't much better. Uber and Lyft prices in Ontario have increased dramatically, with surge pricing that can make short trips cost $50 or more during busy periods. Tourists trying to avoid parking costs find themselves facing transportation expenses that exceed their entertainment budgets. This creates a particularly cruel irony for visitors. They come to Ontario to spend money on experiences, attractions, and local businesses, but end up spending significant portions of their budgets on the basic necessity of getting around. Families that carefully budget for vacation activities find their spending power destroyed by transportation costs they never anticipated. The emotional impact is significant. Instead of feeling welcomed as guests, tourists feel exploited by a system that seems designed to extract maximum revenue from their visit. They leave with negative impressions that they share with friends and family, creating a ripple effect that discourages future tourism. But transportation costs pale in comparison to what's happening with Ontario's natural attractions. Number 7. Overcrowded and commercialized. Natural attractions. Ontario's most beautiful natural spaces have been transformed into overcrowded, commercialized experiences that bear little resemblance to the peaceful nature retreats visitors expect. Here's a reality that would shock nature lovers. Algonquin Provincial Park, once a symbol of Canadian wilderness, now requires advance reservations that sell out months ahead of time. And even with a reservation, you might find yourself camping next to hundreds of other people in what feels more like an outdoor shopping mall than a natural sanctuary. The overcrowding at popular natural destinations has reached absurd levels. Muskoka lakes that were once peaceful retreats are now packed with boats, jet skis, and floating parties that create noise levels comparable to urban environments. The famous cottage country experience that drew generations of visitors has been replaced by crowded waterways where finding a quiet spot requires significant effort and luck. Niagara Falls exemplifies the commercialization problem. The natural wonder that should inspire awe is now surrounded by tourist traps, overpriced restaurants, and aggressive vendors that create a carnival atmosphere rather than a respectful appreciation of natural beauty. Visitors struggle to find viewpoints that aren't crowded with selfie takers and dominated by commercial development. The reservation systems that many parks have implemented, while necessary for crowd control, have made spontaneous nature visits nearly impossible. Families that used to decide on weekend camping trips now need to plan months in advance, removing the flexibility that made outdoor recreation appealing. Many popular camping spots are booked solid from the moment reservations open, creating a system that favors those with flexible schedules and fast internet connections over average families. The environmental impact of overcrowding is becoming visible to visitors. Trails are eroded, campsites are damaged, and wildlife has been disrupted or driven away from areas where it was once abundant. Tourists seeking authentic nature experiences find degraded environments that fail to deliver the restoration and peace they were seeking. The pricing has also increased dramatically. What used to be affordable family recreation now requires significant financial investment just for basic access, before considering equipment, transportation, and accommodation costs. And if you think overcrowded parks are frustrating, wait until you hear about Ontario's restaurant scene. Number 6. Declining food scene and service quality. Ontario's restaurant industry has undergone a dramatic transformation that has left tourists disappointed and questioning whether the province still deserves its reputation for culinary excellence. Here's something that will surprise anyone who remembers Ontario dining from even 5 years ago. Many restaurants that were once considered tourist destinations have either closed permanently, dramatically reduced their hours, or compromised their quality to such an extent that they're unrecognizable from their former selves. The staffing crisis has created service experiences that range from mediocre to genuinely bad. Restaurants throughout Ontario are operating with skeleton crews, leading to long wait times, incorrect orders, and service that feels rushed and impersonal. Tourists who expect the friendly Canadian hospitality they've heard about instead encounter stressed, overworked staff who simply don't have time to provide the attention that creates memorable dining experiences. Menu prices have increased far beyond what most tourists consider reasonable. A basic dinner for a family of 4 at what used to be considered a mid-range restaurant now easily costs $150 to $200 before tip, putting quality dining experiences out of reach for many visitors. Even casual dining options like pubs and family restaurants charge premium prices for food quality that doesn't justify the expense. The tipping culture has become particularly problematic for tourists. The expectation for 20 to 25% tips, combined with automatic gratuity suggestions on payment terminals, creates pressure that makes dining out feel more like a financial transaction than an enjoyable experience. Visitors from countries with different tipping customs feel uncomfortable and unwelcome when faced with service charges they don't understand or agree with. Many restaurants have reduced their operating hours or days, making it difficult for tourists to plan dining experiences around their sightseeing schedules. Establishments that used to be open 7 days a week now close multiple days, leaving visitors with limited options in areas where restaurant density was already low. The farm-to-table movement that once distinguished Ontario cuisine has largely disappeared from tourist-accessible restaurants. Instead of showcasing local ingredients and regional specialties, many establishments have switched to frozen processed foods that reduce costs but eliminate the authentic culinary experiences that draw food-focused travelers. But restaurant problems are just one aspect of a larger issue with customer service across the tourism industry. Number 5. Poor customer service and unwelcoming attitudes. The legendary Canadian friendliness that once made Ontario a welcoming destination has been replaced by indifference and sometimes outright hostility that leaves tourists feeling unwanted and undervalued. Here's an uncomfortable truth that tourism officials don't want to acknowledge. Many frontline service workers in Ontario's tourism industry seem to actively resent dealing with tourists, treating visitors as interruptions rather than valued guests who support their jobs and communities. The attitude problem extends across multiple industries. Hotel staff, attraction employees, retail workers, and even information center volunteers often display impatience, disinterest, or rudeness when dealing with tourist questions or requests. Visitors who expect helpful guidance and friendly service instead encounter people who seem annoyed by their presence and eager to end interactions as quickly as possible. Language barriers have become more problematic, not because of diversity, but because of unwillingness to help. Staff members who could assist tourists in English often claim not to understand or refer visitors elsewhere, rather than taking time to provide helpful information. This creates frustration for tourists and missed opportunities for businesses to create positive experiences that generate repeat visits and referrals. The complaints handling process in Ontario's tourism industry has become particularly poor. When tourists experience problems with accommodations, attractions, or services, they often find that management is unresponsive, defensive, or dismissive of their concerns. Instead of viewing complaints as opportunities to improve and retain customers, many businesses treat them as nuisances to be minimized or ignored. Social media has amplified these service problems, as tourists share negative experiences instantly with large networks of potential visitors. A single bad service experience can influence dozens of people's travel decisions, creating a multiplier effect that damages Ontario's tourism reputation far beyond the individual incident. The psychological impact on tourists is significant. Instead of feeling welcomed as guests contributing to the local economy, visitors feel like they're imposing on people who would prefer they go elsewhere. This creates defensive, unpleasant vacation experiences that tourists remember long after they return home. Training and customer service standards that were once common in the tourism industry have apparently been abandoned in favor of bare minimum interactions that meet legal requirements but fail to create the positive experiences that make destinations memorable. And speaking of memorable experiences, Ontario's weather has become increasingly unpredictable and problematic. Number 4. Extreme weather and climate unpredictability. Ontario's weather has become so unpredictable and extreme that tourists can no longer plan outdoor activities with any confidence, turning vacations into gambling exercises against Mother Nature. Here's a reality that's forcing tourism operators to completely rethink their business models. Ontario now experiences weather events that are so severe and unpredictable that outdoor festivals, camping trips, and sightseeing plans are regularly canceled or ruined with little advance warning. The summer heat waves that now regularly grip Ontario are genuinely dangerous for tourists unaccustomed to the intensity. Temperatures that reach 40 degrees Celsius with humidity make outdoor activities uncomfortable or unsafe for extended periods. Tourists planning to explore cities on foot, visit outdoor attractions, or enjoy cottage activities find themselves trapped indoors during the hottest parts of the day, defeating the purpose of traveling to experience Ontario's outdoor attractions. The severe weather events have become more frequent and intense. Thunderstorms that bring flooding, damaging winds, and power outages can destroy vacation plans with no advance warning. Tourists who planned cottage weekends or camping trips find themselves dealing with dangerous conditions that prevent them from enjoying the activities they traveled to experience. Winter tourism has become particularly challenging due to unpredictable snowfall and ice conditions. Ski resorts operate sporadically due to inconsistent snow, winter festivals are canceled due to unsafe ice, and outdoor winter activities that once defined Ontario's cold weather tourism are no longer reliable attractions. The infrastructure struggles to cope with extreme weather events, creating cascading problems for tourists. Power outages during heat waves leave hotels without air conditioning. Flooding makes roads impassable, and severe storms can shut down airports and cancel flights, stranding visitors or preventing them from reaching their destinations. Air quality has become a significant concern during summer months when forest fires create hazardous conditions that health officials recommend avoiding outdoor activities. Tourists planning active vacations find themselves advised to stay indoors during the periods when they intended to explore Ontario's natural attractions. The unpredictability is perhaps the most frustrating aspect. Tourists can't plan around consistent seasonal patterns because weather extremes can occur at any time, making it impossible to guarantee that expensive vacation plans will be enjoyable or even safe to pursue. But weather problems are minor compared to the safety concerns that are keeping families away. Number 3. Rising crime and safety concerns. Ontario's major tourist destinations have experienced increases in crime and safety issues that are fundamentally changing how visitors experience and perceive the province. Here's a statistic that tourism boards don't advertise. Violent crime rates in Ontario's major cities have increased significantly in recent years, with downtown areas that were once considered safe for tourists now experiencing regular incidents that make headlines and social media feeds. Toronto's downtown core, where most tourists spend their time, has seen increases in random violent incidents, aggressive panhandling, and open drug use that create an atmosphere of unpredictability and danger. Visitors walking between attractions report feeling unsafe, especially during evening hours when they might be traveling between restaurants and entertainment venues. The tent encampments and visible homelessness in tourist areas create uncomfortable situations for visitors who don't know how to respond or whether they're safe. While homelessness is a complex social issue deserving compassion, the reality is that tourists feel unsafe when confronted with situations they don't encounter in their home communities. Transit systems that tourists rely on have become particular safety concerns. Reports of violence, harassment, and threatening behavior on the TTC and GO Transit make visitors reluctant to use public transportation, forcing them back to expensive parking and driving options in unfamiliar cities. Hotel and accommodation safety has declined in some areas, with reports of break-ins, theft, and security issues that leave tourists feeling vulnerable during what should be the most. The psychological impact of safety concerns is profound. Instead of exploring freely and enjoying spontaneous discoveries, tourists find themselves constantly assessing risks, avoiding certain areas, and ending activities earlier than planned. This defensive approach to travel eliminates much of the joy and discovery that makes vacations memorable. Tourist-targeted crimes, including pickpocketing, vehicle break-ins, and scams specifically designed to exploit visitors, have become more common and sophisticated. Tourists dealing with unfamiliar environments are particularly vulnerable to these crimes, which can ruin vacations both financially and emotionally. And safety isn't the only thing keeping visitors away. The bureaucratic barriers have become equally intimidating. Number 2, excessive regulations and bureaucratic barriers. Ontario has created a web of regulations, permits, and bureaucratic requirements that make simple tourist activities feel like navigating government agencies rather than enjoying vacation experiences. Here's an example that perfectly illustrates the problem. Organizing a simple family reunion at a provincial park now requires multiple permits, advance applications, insurance documentation, and fees that can cost more than the actual event, turning what should be a straightforward gathering into a bureaucratic ordeal that many families simply abandon. The fishing and hunting regulations have become so complex that tourists need legal expertise to ensure compliance. What used to be straightforward recreational activities now require understanding dozens of zones, seasons, limits, and special requirements that change frequently and are poorly communicated to visitors. Many tourists who planned fishing trips discover after arrival that they can't legally pursue the activities they traveled to enjoy. Municipal, provincial, and federal regulations that create confusion about where tourists can and can't go. Public beaches have restricted hours, limited parking, and permit requirements that aren't clearly communicated until visitors arrive and discover they can't access areas they assumed were public. The business licensing requirements have made it difficult for tourism operators to provide services that visitors expect. Simple activities like guided tours, equipment rentals, or transportation services require multiple licenses and inspections that have driven many small operators out of business, reducing the variety and availability of tourist services. COVID-related regulations that remained in place long after other jurisdictions removed them created additional barriers and confusion for tourists. Even after official requirements were lifted, many businesses maintained policies that made visitors feel unwelcome or created unnecessary complications for simple activities. The enforcement approach has become particularly problematic, with officials treating technical violations as serious offenses rather than opportunities for education. Tourists who make innocent mistakes due to unfamiliarity with local regulations face fines and penalties that can cost hundreds of dollars and create lasting negative impressions of Ontario. Environmental regulations, while well-intentioned, have created situations where tourists can't access natural areas or participate in traditional outdoor activities without extensive advance planning and documentation that most visitors don't realize they need until it's too late. But all of these problems pale in comparison to the #1 reason tourists are avoiding Ontario.